Good evening, welcome to Midlands Today from the BBC. Tonight, human rights lawyers threaten to take legal action against West Midlands Police over controversial plans to use private companies to run some of its services.
Well, a Birmingham-based legal firm is acting on behalf of a member of the public who's questioned if one of the firms involved should be allowed to bid at all. Texas-based conglomerate Kellogg, Brown and Root were fined over £250 million in the United States for its part in a scheme to bribe Nigerian government officials to obtain contracts worth more than £3.8 billion. Our special correspondent Peter Wilson has this report.
This is the office in Birmingham of the solicitors threatening legal action against West Midlands Police. In the past, public interest lawyers have brought local authorities to account, most notably the British government in the case of Iraqi detainees who were mistreated and tortured. But now they're turning their sights on West Midlands Police and the Chief Constable over the private security firms that he wants to do business with. West Midlands Police are offering contracts worth more than £1 billion for private firms who they hope will transform and enhance its services. One of those is the giant American corporation Kellogg, Brown and Root, known as KBR. It operates worldwide in construction and military contracting. But in 2009 it was fined $400 million for its part in a scheme to bribe Nigerian government officials.
We're concerned that decision has been taken to approve certain bidders without having proper regard, indeed lawful regard, to the history of criminality and misconduct of those companies.
Its critics call it privatisation, but the future of business partnering will be decided by the new Police and Crime Commissioner, due to be elected in November. Labour's candidate says the whole project will be shelved if he gets elected.
If I'm elected, I will be discontinuing that partnership, so the matter will be academic. Additionally, for any other procurement, any other contractors, I will insist on the highest standards, that criminal convictions, breach of international law, would exclude people from providing services to the West Midlands Police.
The Conservative choice says it's the lawyers who will fight it out, but if elected, he'll make the final decision.
Any of these bids would probably end up being pointless anyway, because I'd be changing it fairly dramatically from what they've set up. And I'm not going to go into which companies I happen to like or don't like, because procurement law is very, very strict. You can hold things against people or you can't, and that's what this court case is going to determine, really, whether this can be held against them.
West Midlands Police have confirmed that they've received the letter from the public interest lawyers about business partnering for police. They say that they'll give it their full consideration and will respond as requested. I understand that that response should come by Friday. Peter Wilson at BBC Midlands Today in Birmingham.
And we tried to contact KBR for a comment today, but so far we've had no response. Well, our political editor, Patrick Burns, is watching that report. Patrick, I would have thought this is bound to be one of the first big issues to land on the desk of the new Police and Crime Commissioner once he or she is elected in November. Am I right?
Certainly a challenging question waiting in the in tray for the new Commissioner, whether or not to pursue those business partnerships with all that entails about the suitability or unsuitability of the particular partners concerned. And of course, against the background of this raging debate about, well, depending on your point of view, the privatisation of the police service, or is it just bringing in business acumen to help run the last great unreformed public service in this country? This is the backdrop to be really, I think, the defining issue in this forthcoming election.
Meanwhile, the Electoral Reform Society are saying the whole thing could be a shambles in November anyway. What are they so worried about?
Well, they're very fearful that the public could be ill-prepared, unable in effect to be equipped to make an informed decision when those elections come along, and they're fearful that we could have turnouts of under 20%. What would that mean for the mandate of anyone elected on such a low turnout? I can tell you that at the top of government there is real anxiety about low turnouts, especially after the poor public response to the mayoral referendum 3 months ago. But when I talked to the Police Minister, Nick Herbert, recently, he said once people actually have cottoned on to the fact that this really is their opportunity to have a say in the way their communities are policed, well, they will turn out in numbers.
Also, I think we now know the promise the candidates have to make before the elections. Sounds very American, doesn't it?
Well, there's a lot of Americanisation, some people say, in this, but it's basically to promise to act on behalf of the entire community without fear or favour, to speak up for the victims of crime, and also not to influence or prevent police inquiries or arrests. That could be the subject of debate as well, I think.
Patrick, thanks.
Coming up later in the programme,